Hi, I'm Kevin Eikenberry, the founder and facilitator of Virtual LeaderCon. What follows is one of the sessions from Virtual LeaderCon 2020, just one of the nearly 40 experts that I had join me, experts in leadership development, organizational development, and personal development. Hope you enjoy this session, and you can learn more about Virtual LeaderCon 2021 and how to join for free the week of September the 20th at virtualleadercon.com. If you miss the live sessions, lots of information and ways to get access to great content like what you're about to see, again, available at virtualleadercon.com. And now on with the session. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome here, whether you just got here. Kevin just set the bar high. I have with me my friend, my colleague, my co-author. I have with me a former professional comedian. I have with me a former participant on Jeopardy. I have with me a man who was doing podcasting before podcasting was cool. He lives in Las Vegas, but he grew up in Canada, born and raised. It's Wayne Turmel. Wayne, welcome. Good morning.
Morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. And it is morning because he's in Las Vegas. So it's, what time is it? 8:30. 8:25 or whatever. Okay, another blue shirt. Yeah.
No, it's not. This is actually mint green. What we've got is a yellowy kind of light, but this is actually a mint green shirt. Just for
people just wanted the word blue shirt said because it's on their bingo cards, Wayne. That's really all that's about. A leader's look at the future of work. You and I have had since we co-founded the Remote Leadership Institute. And since we joined forces and you joined our team, we spent a lot of time thinking about the future of work, and it all got accelerated in March. And blue shirt. Okay. So I guess since, you and I, some have said we're on the forefront of all of this because we've been talking about and working with remote leadership for a long time. But I'm curious, what have we learned? What have you learned about the future of work, about what's happening? What have you learned in the last 6 months?
That nobody has a crystal ball. That's the primary thing. All these people who claimed to be futurists and said they knew what this was going to look like. Nope, not a clue. And so I think one of the things we've learned is that everybody is making this up as we go along.
They don't all want to tell you that. And
nobody wants to tell you that,
by the way.
Nobody wants to tell you that. But there's a few things that we've learned. Some of it surprising and some of it not. The surprising thing, I think, is that a lot of organizations are finding that employee engagement scores are up. And it's like, huh? Right? How does that make sense? We're not together. People are scrambling. They're doing whatever. And a lot of CEOs, this is actually next week's blog post, a lot of CEOs were surprised because while they were putting on a brave face as we moved to everybody being remote, there was a lot of people holding their breath and going, oh, this is going to be awful. And not only did, in most organizations, productivity not drop too much, but engagement went up. And it's like, what gives? Well, what gives is it's amazing what people will do when there's a common enemy.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody pulled together. Everybody's like, we're going to make this work. All right, let's do it. And lo and behold, they got it done, sometimes under very adverse conditions. And so that surprised people. What is happening is a few things. Number one is the edges are starting to fray a little bit.
Yeah, they're not starting. They're fraying, man.
We were told that this was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. We in America were told it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. The rest of the world already knew what they were in for. And so all of that running on adrenaline and pulling together and making the best of it is starting to make people tired and cranky. So that's one thing. But as you look at a couple of things that we know are going to happen, one is that there is going to be no new normal. Every individual organization, based on where it is geographically, who else they work with, what industry they're in, everybody's going to be making up their own rules around remote work and flexible work and who comes into the office and do we have everybody at the same time. And we're already seeing organizations letting leases lapse on big offices
Some
and
big
consolidating.
Some really big ones. Salesforce, $450 some million. They said, we'll just pay you so we can get out of our lease.
Yeah. And they're moving to
number, by the way.
7-Eleven is moving to hoteling operations.
Yes, they are.
Where you will no longer have your desk, right?
Yeah,
and think about it. Already we're in a situation where, this is John's desk and he's got the picture of the kid and the cat and all of that stuff on his desk, and he's there like 1 or 2 days a week. It doesn't make sense, right? We're consolidating communication technology, which is huge. We're using Zoom and we're using Slack and we're using Jammer and we're using WebEx and we're using because everybody was grabbing whatever tools they had to make it work. And now organizations are going, okay, let's consolidate lists, let's get standard processes in place. And that is a really good plan. Unfortunately, some of the tools, and I'm platform agnostic, I don't care what you use. Some of the tools like Microsoft Teams, which make sense to go to because you're already integrated into that platform, are just not up to the job. I was up with somebody in Europe this morning, and they cannot present classes on Microsoft Teams because half the tools don't work in their system.
We're not dissing Microsoft.
This is not about Microsoft Teams as a tool, but the implementation, and it's been implemented so fast and it's so chaotic and there's no consistency from organization to organization that there's a lot of frustrated people out there. Good news, we're going to have one tool that's going to do everything. Bad news is it doesn't do what we need it to do yet. And so there's a lot of that. And then I think the biggest thing is that we've been talking for years about hybrid teams, right? That this idea of working from home is not hybrid. It's not is not binary. It's not like you work from home or you work in the office. But more people are going to be working from home part-time. More teams are going to be a mix of people in the office and people working from home. And up until now, the default always went to the people in the office.
Yeah, that's where the power still was.
Right? The power was there. That's where if you wanted to get promoted, you needed to be in the office. If there was a meeting, everybody would meet in the conference room and a couple of people would dial in from outside and kind of have one hand tied behind their back. That's changing. People are discovering there were lots of organizations that didn't have webcams for people in the office because why would they need to see everybody?
Or they had them covered.
Oh yeah, well, there's that too.
So let me stop you.
Those are the things that we know are happening. What the upshoot of that, what it's going to look like down the road, who knows? But that's what we're looking at 30, 60, 90, 120 days.
Yeah, I read recently that no expert knows anything more than 140 days, right? So there you go. So I realized that I dove in to introducing Wayne to all of you and left out a couple of logistical things. Let me do those now. We will let Wayne pick a question, which means you got to ask questions there. We'll let Wayne pick a question, and for that, we'll give away a copy of this and a copy of this when it comes out in a few months. And we'll take a random question. So that means there better be more than one, everybody. And we'll give a copy of Bob T's book. Now that's a great question. And that's what we're going to do. And if we get Adrian, pick something in the chat. Pick something in the chat when we're done, and we'll give something away too. We'll get that done at the end. Now the questions are coming in. We're going to go to those questions. You gave us a great place to start, Wayne, and give people a place to work from. So let's go to the first question. Ed asked, you may already be planning to address this, but how do you work with the old school management that thinks everyone should be sitting at the desk? And even though maybe people have been more productive now, but they're saying, we're just waiting. You're all coming back. What's your advice there, Wayne?
Well, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to use an unkind metaphor. It's kind of like the dinosaurs watching the asteroid coming and going, cool. So there's some of that going on. I think we're having a little bit of this because those old school managers have had to work from home themselves. And there may have been a massive increase in empathy that's gone on. The other thing is, I was actually talking to somebody who went, this is actually kind of cool, right? I've gone to the office every day for 30 years, but I kind of dig this working from home thing. So some of it is going to kind of happen organically as they experience it themselves and get to see how this works. I think that another thing is, from an HR system standpoint, organizations are going to have to move to what you say all the time, which is measuring outcomes, not activity. Yeah. Right? Logging on at 9 a.m. does not mean you're being any more productive than somebody who's kind of working stranger hours, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I still, to this day, I'm getting questions about, well, can we put keystroke monitoring software on their computers? And, can you monitor their webcams? And I go, yes, you can. There's a special place in Hades for you, but yes, you can.
There's a big difference between can and should.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're asking the wrong question. I would add to Ed's question. We'll go to a couple of these other questions. I would add to what you said and to Ed's question is, I think that we heard that question, Ed, a lot, March and April. And I think Wayne's saying that some of those people are starting to come around. Not all of them. Some of them are starting to come around. And so don't pre-assume that because that's what they were saying out loud in February, that's necessarily where their heads are now. There's lots of reasons for why they maybe had to work from home. They got a little more empathy, but also they're starting to look at this, at maybe the productivity is not that bad or maybe really good. And they're also learning two other things. We might be able to save some cash on real estate. And the other one is, if they're smart, they're starting to figure out that if we make everybody come back, some of those folks are going to say, not interested. And they're, as we heard yesterday or a couple of days ago, people are more portable. And so people are going to be ready to go.
Well, that's the thing, is that now that the genie's out of the bottle, you can look at it like all constraints, right? It's both positive and negative. On the one hand, more people are going to want to work from home. That might be a problem if you're a control freak, or your culture really likes people being all together. That's a legitimate choice, but you're limiting who you can hire, and can you find the best people, and what kind of folks are you attracting to the organization? So there's a very much a free market component to this, which says if you choose not to adjust, you're limiting your employee pool, you're limiting the diversity in every meaning of that word that comes to your company. That's a choice.
Absolutely. 100%.
There's a question, Karen asks a question that I think is really important, Kevin, and it doesn't get talked about very much.
Before he does that, now I have had, and I had any of them right now already owning that and getting ready to ask questions themselves, and they saw that. Why? It's because this guy's been a long time. When you listen to this guy talk about stuff, he's not the particular tool today. One after they went these tools and point is example more call you
so, Kevin, I'm going to tell you, you're breaking up really badly. I don't know if it's me or you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so while Kevin figures out his problem, gang, since you can hear me and you can't hear Kevin, let me answer the question I wanted to answer, which was, Karen was asking about how are we going to handle PTO and those sorts of things. And I have to tell you, there's a big problem in Q4 in a lot of organizations around HR, because people have not been taking the time they're entitled to. A lot of people have been reluctant to take time off, partly because I'm already home, right? I'm not planning a big vacation, so I'm not going to take time off. Or the company needs me and I'm a valuable member of the team and, we're still all pulling together. But we talked about at the beginning, the things kind of fraying at the edges. Part of it is because people are exhausted and they're not taking time. I know I have 2 vacations now that have been canceled. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a lot of long weekends. It's like, Kevin, I haven't got anything scheduled for Friday. I'm taking Friday off. And I'm using my PTO that way. A lot of organizations, though, have a lot of people with a lot of PTO lined up, and people aren't taking it. And from a human decency standpoint, from a how do we make sure we have people staffed and in the right place, all of those things need to be taken into account, and you need to talk to your people and see where they are. Yvette, hi Yvette, how are you? Exhaustion is real, and it's a real thing. My guest today is Kevin Eikenberry. He's joining us from Indianapolis.
Hey, I'm glad to be back, everybody. And you continue without a hitch. So I knew that you would. I could actually still hear you even after a brief moment.
We've done this once or twice, buddy.
So I know you have. And that was actually when I broke up what I was trying to tell everybody is that you're the first guest this week that automatically thought about going and looking at the questions yourself instead of waiting on me. Now, maybe it's because you don't trust me, but I think it's just because you're adept and you're comfortable, even though you've used this tool, you've used the used tool. So us being agile and thinking about that and getting comfortable and being willing to try stuff is super important. You want to say anything about that specifically?
Yeah, it's funny. Of all the blog posts we've done in the last 6 months, the one that I wrote that got the biggest kind of reaction was something called The 100th Monkey Works from Home. And
he loved the title too, by the way, everybody.
Well, the thing is that there is a theory that, when you're thinking about adopting technology or you're adopting new social habits, people struggle to implement it until suddenly there's some critical mass of people using it. And then suddenly everybody's using it and it's no longer a big deal. And what has happened since March 15th or so is we crossed the Rubicon around webcams. Used to be we had to beat on people all the time. Use your webcam, use your webcam, use your webcam. And people had all kinds of excuses. And now most people are using it. And some of that is because of technology. Zoom and other tools have made it easier. And some of it is just people have been forced to do it and they find out nobody has ever been harmed in the use of a webcam.
How far can leaders plan for the future of work? It's been so unpredictable.
Yeah, I kind of heard the question before he disappeared. How do you plan for that? Talk to your people, see what they need, and then hold that up against your goals for the year. What are we going to need to do to be better, right? If we're going to implement Microsoft Teams, do people know how to use it? I mean, just the rule in software is 80% of people use 20% of the features. Well, that's a problem, right? If you've got a job that's really hard to do and your business depends on it and you're using 20% of the tools, you're working way too hard and probably losing productivity. So whatever tool you're going to use, organizations need to think about, how are we going to implement this in a way that people use it? How are we going to give them resources? That kind of thing. And I think, like everything else in life, form follows function, right? What are your goals for the year? What are you going to need to do to hit those goals? And what do you need? And IT is not going to make that decision for you. The finance people should not be making that decision for you. It should be based on what does the business and that business unit and that team, what do they need to do the best work they can do? And then it's a mix of technology, training, he says selfishly, and discussion.
Can you see me again now?
We can.
Well, there's all this going on. I see Kevin. I don't see Kevin. I hear Wayne. I don't hear Wayne. But we think everyone's got you, even if I've had to leave a couple of times. The questions keep pouring in. Here's what we're going to do, everybody. If you haven't used the question much, if you go in and read them yourself, if you like one, vote for it. It'll help us prioritize the ones that we have. All right. So here's a question. Will there be periodic forced breaks or off times in the future so that people are at their freshest and creative best?
Forced breaks. It's going to vary organization by organization. If your organization is very people-oriented, you're already very mindful of, hey, you've got 2 weeks PTO that you haven't taken. Come on, let's get on this, right? And you're planning to do that. I understand in the panic of working from home, everybody just put their heads down and we were just trying to get through it. We're past that point. Now it's time to start saying, how are your people doing? What do they need? You know, we were just talking about PTO. North Americans in particular, tend to leave almost a week of PTO on the table every year as it is. This year, that's going to be worse at the time when the stressors and things that are creating problems are higher. That's a bad plan. So leaders, and I'm going to rat Kevin out.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, I'll give you a simple example.
I have no idea what he's going to say.
Something showed up at my door the other day. I got this package from Amazon and I open it up and it's a 2-pound bag of gummy bears. Okay, from whence come the gummy bears, right? And there was this big mystery, like who sent it, who sent it, who sent it? Well, Kevin, completely unprompted, decided to send every member of the team their favorite candy. Now, some of that was Kevin's a good guy and he's being thoughtful and it was a fun, silly thing to do. Some of it was, it's been crazy around here and without a little sugar and high fructose corn syrup, Wayne was not going to make it through the week. But the fact is that little things like that go a long way to getting discretionary effort from people, from keeping them engaged. Little things like that. It wasn't a big deal. Kevin's been very good about how much time do we have. And I don't say this because Kevin's the boss, except that we try as best we can around here to walk it like we talk it.
Martha says she would like to hear your perspective on remote work for public servants. We work with a lot of public servants. Thoughts about that?
We do a lot with the U.S. government in all kinds of ideas, all kinds of divisions. And it's interesting because there's a perception of government work, which depending on your particular leanings may or may not be charitable. But the fact is the government has had for a long time a plan for remote work. And not just remote work in terms of letting people work from home, which they are doing, but depending on security clearance and the division and things like that, as you would think. But they are also moving entire divisions out of Washington, D.C. FDA is moving a whole bunch of people to Omaha, Nebraska. The FBI is finding its new home in Birmingham, Alabama, or Huntsville, Alabama, of all places, which makes sense on a bunch of levels, social levels, cost of living, ability to keep people don't spend 2 hours a day stuck on the Beltway. But, okay, the office is moving to Alabama. I'm not moving to Alabama. I can keep working for the organization. So there's a huge social shift that's going on anyway with remote work. And the government, in a lot of ways, has been planning for this for a while.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And, you know, a lot of people politically, a lot of people were like, well, you know, those government workers, if they're not coming into the office, they're going to slack off. And just like everybody else, there is some of that. And most people want to do a really good job and do their best. And we're finding that.
Adrian wants to know if she can stop co-hosting. See, everyone didn't all get their candy at the same time, everybody. So that's why I asked Adrian if she had figured out what was showing up in her mail today. And so can you take a break? Everyone is going to, in the side, you're all going to say yes, but go ahead and tell Adrian that she can take a break to check her mail. Zoom fatigue. 4 sentences on how we deal with it. We all agree that it's real. 4 sentences on what to do about it.
Number one is be smart about when you use it and when you don't. It's not always necessary. Sometimes a phone call or a simple voice call using Zoom or whatever, but you don't have to be on camera is one. Number two is if you've got a lot of people on the call, change the view to active speaker so that you're not looking at the Brady Bunch view across the top of the screen, because our eyes literally can't stop scanning. And we're working way too hard unconsciously. That's why being on Zoom meetings and such is exhausting. And then the third thing is don't overschedule yourself. And the fourth thing is have some fun. It's okay.
Yeah, the reason I knew everybody's favorite candy, everybody, is on a team meeting a while back. I did a little we did a little quiz. We did 2 things: favorite feel-good movie and favorite candy. People had to guess who was who, and then people told what their answers were, and then I gave prizes for the winners. And I just held on to that piece of paper where I'd captured all the data, and asked Laura to help me be sneaky a couple weeks ago, and now everyone's getting their candy. And now you know that Wayne's favorite candy is gummy bears. He will accept them. All you got to do is figure out his mailing address, which if you go to info@kevineikenberry.com, they will give you his mailing address. How about that, Wayne? Dorma Harrison, you have just won a copy of Shasta Nelson's book, The Business of Friendship. She was on the other day. The book is signed, and you're going to get that for being the random person in chat that was a winner. So there you go. Let's see. We've got a little more time, Wayne, but I've got some questions I'm asking everybody, and I think you know them because you were on the other day, but I'm going to do it anyway. Sue asks, what's your opinion about the best method for psychological safety? And how's that going to look in the future when we're doing this all remotely?
Boy, that's a broad topic. I'm not exactly sure what specifically around psychological safety you're asking, although there are some obvious things. There are privacy issues, right? If you do not have a dedicated workspace, for example, are you giving away where you work? Have you been kind of faking it up till now, working from the north end of the dining room table with the kids and the dog running around, and now suddenly you're exposed and people know that, right? That's an issue. We need to understand where our people are working. For things like security, personal security. Are you giving away too much personal information and sharing sharing home addresses and things like that? Kevin, I mean to talk to you about that.
I didn't give the home address.
I'm kidding. I don't care. Bring it.
Hey, do you want
a gated community? If you got the gate code and the gummy bears, come on in. So psychological safety is going to be really important, particularly as we use more and more video. And it's not that hard. Kevin and I talk about this all the time, that some organizations treat this stuff like it's rocket science or it requires incredible analysis. And 9 times out of 10, the answer is it necessary? And is it kind? You can track people's keystrokes. You can track when they log on and log off the network. You can track all that. And why do you want to? And that's going to go a huge way to addressing the psychological safety issue. Why is it important that you do X? Why is it important that you share certain information, or that people are required to do certain things? That's going to be important. It involves disabilities. It involves psychological help. It involves so much. Is it necessary and is it kind? That's a pretty good filter to run through almost anything.
Sure is. I'm going to ask you, Wayne. Well, first of all, I'm going to bring Adrian up with us, and so she can join us. And while I'm doing that, what I'd like you to do, Wayne, is pick one of the questions, one that we answered or one that we didn't, and we're going to give that person some swag here in a minute. Okay? So you pick one while we get Adrian coming up.
And I'll tell you exactly which one it is. I love the question about the sick time, vacation, PTO, because that's actually been a huge issue for individuals and nobody's been talking about it. So I love the fact that they raised it.
So, okay. And so that person is, I'm not looking at it.
Oh, neither am I. I will get to that. I want to say it is Karen.
While he's looking.
It's Karen.
Karen is going to be the winner of a copy of The Long Distance Leader, and when it comes out, The Long Distance Teammate.
You'll be the first kid on your block to have one.
Hey, everybody, it matches the shirt.
Aye.
Just saying. That was not intentional, but that just hurt Angie's chances for me to change shirt colors next year. Just saying. And we have a winner. You picked a random question.
Yes.
Did you not? Miss
I did.
Adrian?
Well, I looked at the list and
yeah, you picked one, but I've got another. We're gonna give another winner.
Okay.
Yes, I chose Nicole Jenkins.
Nicole Jenkins, you get a copy of Bob T's great book. Now that's a great question to help you with your questioning skills. And that's going to go to Nicole. That's going to go to Nicole. There you go. All the details are there. So, Wayne, I've got questions we're asking everybody. The first one we've asked everybody. I know the answer. Most people here do not. Where'd you go to college?
The little bit of college that I went to, I have an associate's degree in broadcast journalism from the British Columbia Institute of Technology in Burnaby, British Columbia.
And all Adrian wants to know is, how's their football team? That's all she wants to know. Okay.
This is the difference in Canadian and American colleges. Not only were the Cougars horrible when I was there, they ceased inter-school play in 2001.
Inter-school play. I love that. In other words,
there are no full free rides to Canadian colleges for sports, by the way.
Playing down by the Burnaby refinery for Chevron. There you go. See, I know my Burnaby.
You did.
Question for you. What have you done during the COVID? That might be on someone's bingo card. Just saying. What have you been doing during the COVID to stay sane and have fun, Wayne?
The COVID. Some people know this and some people don't. I actually, when I'm not working, wrangling Kevin through getting business books written, I actually write novels in my spare time. And I have one coming out in November. So I'm not only working on the next one, but I'm getting ready to launch that one, my fourth novel. That's what Amazon is for. Look it up. Johnny Lycan and the Anubis Disc, November 19th. But the point is that that's what I do. And not only do I write, but because I work from home, my only real social interaction is a writer's group that I belong to. And being new to Las Vegas, it kind of immediately gave me a social circle that allowed me to get out and be with human beings and things, because I work from home and it's just the wife and I. So, you know, I needed something to establish me socially, and that's what does it, is my group of writer friends.
So if you want more information about Wayne and all things Wayne Turmel, click on that link below, learn more about Wayne Turmel. You can get a bunch of links to a bunch of stuff there. And if you missed the bingo card scenario, you can get your bingo card, you have a chance to win some stuff right there. You can see it over there in the chat. So go to the bingo, virtualleadercon.com/bingo to get your bingo card and have a chance to win later today. Next question. What's one thing that you think leaders ought to know right now? What's your biggest tip this morning, Wayne? That's the question.
One thing leaders need to know. Again, this is this week's blog post, but it's been very top of mind, and you don't need to be a psychologist to figure out why. Watch the way you talk to yourself. If everybody else's nerves are fraying right now, and I guarantee you good leaders are suffering more, because not only are we worried about our folks, we tend to always take one for the team. We tend to be the one to sacrifice the extra time or whatever. And the question that I asked in this week's blog post was, would you talk to an employee the way you talk to yourself? And I will tell you, I cuss myself out in a way that would have me in front of HR so fast in any half-decent organization.
Yeah,
right?
in your own head,
the voices
right?
in my head are really unkind to me. And right now we need to cut ourselves a little slack and a little grace. If you're here, if you're looking after your professional development, you already are doing a lot of the right things or trying to do the right things. Cut yourself some slack. Doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. But just give yourself a little grace. And I think we all need to hear that right now.
Grace might be on
a bingo card. And I've got one more question for you, Wayne. Anything, Adrian, that you've noticed in the chat or anything that you want to say?
No, I don't think so. I love those. Is it necessary and is it kind? 2 questions. Wayne likes to keep it simple, and I do too.
I was going to wait till later in the day to make this announcement. I'm going to make it right now because an awful lot, not all, but a lot of our team is over here in the chat right now. So I just want everyone that is here to know how much I appreciate all the work that everyone on this team did, whether you've seen them on here, heard their name, seen them chatting or not. So what they don't know until right this minute is I'm telling them all to take a half a day off next week on the company. Don't come to work for half a day. We can talk later about what that half a day is going to be and when that's going to be. But everyone here is going to get a half a day off next week. Just saying. So there you go. And it doesn't count when you're going to the dermatologist, Wayne. That you got to take other time besides the dermatologist appointment. Uh-oh, I just broke the HIPAA laws. Sorry.
You did. I am not psychologically safe. Now, let's face it. I'm a redheaded Canadian living in the desert. A dermatologist appointment is pretty much a rite of passage, but
pretty good idea for you to do that. Anything from the chat, Adrian, that we ought to talk about, comment on, anything at all?
I mean, I'm sure we've got other questions here if we have time that you want to answer them.
Well, we really don't, because I got.
Okay.
Sorry, I do want to address Dorma's. I do want to address Dorma's comment in the chat. She says the leader's expected to be there for the worker, but very often the leader is by herself. And take advantage of your peer network with the other leaders. Band together, share best practices, see what you're doing. You are not, and it's ironic because Dorma lives in Jamaica, but you are not an island. You might be on an island, but you are not an island.
Last question, Wayne. What should I have asked you, or you thought I was going to ask you that I didn't?
What didn't you ask me? Boy, I honestly don't have an answer to that one, other than I think what we're experiencing here, what's kind of been the experience around the world, what's been the international experience. Because lately I've been doing a lot of work with folks overseas, and their kind of approach to this has been much more measured and consistent. And therefore, they're kind of making peace with whatever normal is going to be and starting to settle into rhythms. And I think we can learn from a lot of that. I think overseas organizations that look over here for guidance, maybe we need to do the opposite, is all I'm saying.
There you go. All right. So it is time. Unless there's something else, Adrian, since I interrupted you a second ago, is there anything else?
I'm used to it. Not with you, of course, though.
Well, we probably both are. As as there was a conversation the other day, we are both pretty good at it with each other, as it turns out.
Well, and if you recall Jennifer Conweiler's session about extroverts don't look at it as interrupting, we're just chatting. I'm like, who's interrupting? I'm just talking.
We close all the loops. It just may not be in the same order. That's all. Everyone tell Wayne, thank you over there in the chat. We're going to close this down. You all know the drill. If you don't, go down to the next window. I'll be there in a second with our next guest. Wayne, thanks so much.